Hi guys. So ex-Tory MP, ex-Brexit MEP, Anne Widdecombe commented on talk radio about masks and why she doesn't want to wear masks and why she thinks there should be an exemption for wearing masks.
First though, Anne Widdecombe is here, the former Tory minister and columnist at the Daily Express, and you have caused quite a stir this week with your proposal for supermarkets to, and I guess all shops, to look at introducing 1 hour a day where folk like you who hate wearing masks can be unmuzzled and shop without one.
Yes, indeed. It, of course, wouldn't just be people who don't like masks. But there are people who are medically exempt from wearing one because they have a problem. We've already had accounts of how such people have been challenged in shops, very embarrassing for them, because, of course, you don't go about with a great sort of a legend on your forehead saying medically exempt. So,
why? First of all, why is this guy like some sort of solar-powered nodding dog that you have in your car? Why isn't he challenging her? There's a difference between people who just don't want to wear a mask and people who need not to wear it for medical reasons. You know, I think it's perfectly acceptable, and most reasonable people would agree with me on this, that if there are certain people who can't wear a mask for medical reasons, they can just have a note from their doctor or some type of certificate that when they enter a store, you know, it can be inside their wallet or whatever, and they flash it to the staff in the store or whatever, and they're not bothered. But this is completely different to people who don't want to wear a mask for some political reason.
People don't know. And I just think that if you had a time, might not even be every day, but several times a week, if you had a time when people who either find masks unbearable or who are medically exempt from wearing them can go into shops and supermarkets, I just throw it out as a suggestion. It might...
I just throw it as a suggestion. So you want people to spread the virus, to spread the pandemic, because they can't be bothered to wear a mask, because they can't be bothered to use common sense, to follow the rules. This is not a discussion about people who have a medical requirement. This is about people who couldn't give a crap, who couldn't care less about anyone else and say, I don't want to wear a mask. Now, she'll make this idea that she's already talked about it, how it's uncomfortable, or I don't like to wear it because it's it's something that's unsightly perhaps. But most of the people who are complaining about these masks are not about because it's uncomfortable, but it's for some political reason. And we can't have one set of rules for one group of people who want to follow the rules and another set of rules for people who don't want to follow rules, if that makes any sense.
Mean that those people don't do what I'm certainly doing at the moment, which is abandoning the high street and ordering online.
Yes, so you don't want to shop, do you, because you hate going out in a mask?
Yeah. I find the masks impossible. I can manage with a visor, but I find the masks absolutely impossible. That's not the end of the world, of course it isn't. And I can shop from...
What do you mean impossible? Do you have a medical condition that doesn't allow you to wear a mask? If you have a medical condition, then there is no argument here. There is no discussion to be had. You're saying it's impossible. I'd like to know why you mean it's impossible.
From home, I can shop on the net. But the big question is, if Boris wants to regenerate the high streets, if there are enough people, either because they're medically exempt and embarrassed, or because they just can't bear it anyway, if they're shopping online, then it's not going to help the high street.
Tell me, Anne, what do you hate so much about the mask? Because obviously there are a lot of people who are so opposed to these things. What is it that you don't like?
I just find them too uncomfortable to wear, even really to buy a pint of milk. I wear a visor to go and buy a pint of milk because that's fairly straightforward. I certainly wouldn't browse in one. I've always found anything about the mouth and nose uncomfortable. For example, when I was...
Okay, just aside from this, the idea that you would have a 1 hour or 2 hour period in the day where people who don't want to wear masks can go into stores. Yes, but if they cough on top of cornflakes, for example, and I go in wearing a mask hoping that I'm not going to get infected, and I pick up those cornflakes, then does anyone see what the problem is? It's very simple. People will spread the virus by coughing on things, by sneezing on things, by breathing on things. That's why we want to have masks as widespread as possible. If some people have permission not to wear masks, then they're going to spread it around. And also consider for a moment the staff who work in these premises. They're going to have to deal with members of the public who are wearing masks, and they're also going to put themselves at a higher risk with people who don't want to wear masks.
Much younger. I used to do a lot of sea swimming, but whereas some of my friends would snorkel, I would just content myself with swimming underwater and then coming up for air because I didn't like the thing across my face. And indeed, I've had to tell beauticians.
Yes, but there was no pandemic when you were swimming in the swimming pool. This idea that, well, I didn't like to put things on my face, and now that there's a pandemic, I still don't want to put things on my face because for some reason it's uncomfortable. I know it's uncomfortable, but it's a requirement.
Before now, no, don't put that over my face.
So it's a comfort issue for you rather than one of civil liberties and freedoms?
Well,
what's funny about this whole entire interview is this commentator was hoping that she would start out on this, well, they're taking away our freedoms and everything. And she went down a sort of benign way of, well, it's uncomfortable and I don't like to have this thing on my face. And, well, I'm still wearing a shield, but the mask I'm not all that gone on. And this has probably been a huge anticlimax for him because he was probably hoping that she'd go directly into the civil liberties angle, and as she hasn't, he has to inject it into the conversation.
There is a civil liberties angle, but I think that's a very different issue. I mean, if I was going to argue the civil liberties side, I would simply say we have this out of proportion. We've been without masks all this time, and the virus has been falling off despite the fact that we've been without masks.
What? Okay, so she's just said that, well, the numbers have been falling off because even though people haven't been wearing masks. A lot of people have been wearing masks. And thanks to that, the numbers have been falling. It's not the numbers have been falling because a lot of people haven't been wearing masks. And also, when you say the numbers have been falling, well, there's still a serious issue at the moment. For example, on the 25th of July, the UK registered 768 new cases and 123 deaths. Now, those aren't fantastic numbers. Those aren't numbers that we can say, well, it's over. Let's move back into normality again. Let's just convince people to wear a mask or not wear a mask as they prefer.
We were in shops less than a week ago without masks, perfectly lawfully. I would then argue that this was a nonsense for everybody. What I'm now trying to do is to simply find some sort of, if you like, compromise. Where
it's a compromise. Who is compromising here? You're not compromising. You're being asked to wear a mask when you go into a store. You spend whatever time necessary in that store, and then you leave, and then you're able to take off the mask. If you go into the store for half an hour once a day, then for you that's too much of a compromise. While the staff who are working in that store have to wear the mask for all of the day. Now, I don't actually know the situation in the UK, but here in Italy, if you work with the customers, with the public, you have to wear a mask at all times. So there are people wearing masks all day. I think it's not much of a compromise for us as members of the public to wear a mask for 5, 10, 20 minutes when we go in to buy something.
People can still go to the high street, can still go to the supermarket. That's what I'm trying to find.
Are you with Peter Hitchens, who describes masks now as muzzles?
Well, I'm certainly closer to him than I am to
How the great have fallen.
the argument that we should all wear masks everywhere. Yes, I'm certainly much closer to him. But there is just so much inconsistency at the moment. I give you, for example, my local store has a cafe. Now, if I go into the store, into the cafe, that's fine. I can sit there without a mask. The instant I leave the cafe, even if all I'm going to do is leave the store, but I have to walk through the store, I break the law if I don't wear a mask.
Yep.
Shopkeepers don't have to wear masks, but their customers do. We can go into pubs, we can go into restaurants, we can go to so many places without masks. It's all very inconsistent.
Well, it was very odd in Italy last weekend. I was in Italy, and you...
First of all, why are you not self-isolating? Or why are you not quarantining? I assume if you had returned from Italy, you had to quarantine, or maybe not.
can not have a mask on at a table, but the moment that you stand up in a restaurant to go to the loo or to pay your bill, you have to put your mask on.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is just...
Which is nonsensical.
No, it's not nonsensical, you friggin' idiot. This guy thinks it's nonsense. Okay, when you're... let me explain, because I'm living in Italy. When you arrive to enter, for example, a bar or a restaurant, you have to put on a mask when you enter. When you're sitting at your table and maintaining social distancing, you can remove the mask to eat or to drink. When you get up, you must put your mask back on when you go to pay or go to the loo, as he said. Now, the reason being is that if you're not wearing the mask while moving around, you're going to spread the pandemic. If you have it, we don't know if people are infected or not as they enter the building. So we try to create a precautionary measure, which is the mask. Now, you can't eat with a mask on, you can't drink with a mask on. So the compromise here is to allow people to remove the mask for the time they're eating and drinking, and then requiring them to put it back on again, because they're moving around. If I'm staying in one place and breathing, maybe I'm spreading it, but the spread is limited. If I'm moving around without a mask, breathing on people, breathing on objects, then I'm going to spread it. How is this nonsensical in your mind?
Well, it's totally so, but we also have rules which are nonsensical. I've just listed some of the inconsistencies. What's happening is it's the usual pressure on government, and I know it well. It's the pressure to be seen to be doing something.
Yeah.
And if somebody says you should be doing this and you don't do it, and then, there's any sort of spike, well, you're responsible. So let's not be called responsible for this. Let's do something.
Okay, but what about the...
Well, people also have, a duty as a citizen to protect other citizens. Do you not believe that that is the case?
Counter-argument, though, which is that masks give folk confidence. And actually, there have been some people out who have just been too terrified to leave the house, too terrified to go on the high street, too terrified to go in supermarkets. Now that people are going to be wearing masks, they have the confidence to go out.
Well, I mean...
Who are you talking about? Who has the confidence to go out? Maybe once again, you're talking about very small numbers of people. There's a very small number of people who, who can't operate with a mask, and then there's a very small number of people who are afraid to actually go out. There are people, yes, who are afraid to leave the house because they're afraid they have a phobia of this pandemic, and a mask may be helping them. But these are very small minorities we're talking about.
I think you've got two sorts of people. You've got some who have been cowering at home, absolutely terrified to go out, despite the fact that people have been doing it for a long time, and the virus has been declining. You've got them, but you've then got the others who simply won't wear the masks or who will only wear the masks when it's an absolute screaming necessity to do so. And so you've got two sorts. And I can quite believe that some will go back into the high street now that they see everybody's got to wear a mask. But then they will see people who aren't wearing masks because they're shopkeepers or because they're people with a medical exemption or whatever it may be.
Oh, what do you mean, or whatever it may be? Or because they don't give a crap? Call a spade a friggin' spade. There are people who won't wear a mask because they don't give a flying frig. Okay, I'm trying to avoid swearing here. There are people who don't give a crap about anyone but themselves, and those people will not wear masks. Civil duty won't convince them. Empathy for others won't convince them. Common decency won't convince them. They won't wear a mask. Just please call a spade a spade.
And they'll see people without masks. Well, what are they going to do? Flee home again?
But Anne, you know, people get very heated about this. I mean,
yes,
there
I
has
do.
even been a reaction to your suggestion with folk calling you treacherous for
Don't worry,
suggesting a
some
mask-free hour.
They would like.
Who? This is someone who takes an opinion presented by someone they agree with and then inventing a response. Who's called her treacherous? People have called her stupid. There's a difference. If you don't know the difference between treason and stupidity, I don't know how you managed to get on the radio. The problem here is that Anne Widdecombe doesn't live in reality. Anne Widdecombe wants everything to be the way it was before. I would like things to be the way they are before, the world before. But I know that they're not going to be that way. And certainly we won't be able to return to some sort of normality unless people take the right measures and follow the advice when the advice is given correctly by the government. But this idea that, well, we can allow and compensate and compromise for people who don't give a crap is absurd. Because the people who don't give a crap will be the super spreaders. They will be the people who will spread this pandemic far and wide. And the ones who are taking precautions will not be protected from this because, for example, as I said before, if somebody takes off their mask and starts walking around inside a shop or a store, breathes on cornflakes boxes or touches things, coughs into their hand and then touches things, and I go in there wearing a mask, assuming that I'm protecting myself and protecting others, and I touch those objects, then I'm taking that home and I'm risking infecting my family as well. So that's why it's important that people wear masks, and to hell with people who don't want to wear it because they consider it uncomfortable or an encroachment on their civil liberties. Let me know in the comments section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. Why not become a Patreon and enjoy access to our Discord server where we share news, chat, and have some fun. If you become a patron, you can also make video suggestions on topics that are important to you. Check it out via the link in the description.